You guys, Erin here, back with another moon update for you. I'm going to be talking about the very powerful new moon we've got coming up here on Wednesday, August 16th. This new moon peaks at 2:38 a.m. Pacific time. And this new moon is in the sign of Leo, 23 degrees Leo. Now, as with any new moon, this is a time to manifest new beginnings or growth that are related to the zodiac sign in which the new moon takes place. So this is a time to manifest new beginnings or growth that are related to this sign of Leo. And this is a very, very powerful sign. So in this recording, what I'm going to do is I'm going to break down the sign of Leo so you know what you're working with here. I'll also be talking about certain parts of the body that are ruled by the sign of Leo, because these parts of our body do become more sensitive when the moon transits through the sign of Leo, but especially when it's a new or a full moon in the sign of Leo. So I will also be talking about some potential herbal remedies to help support these parts of our body. And I'm also, of course, going to be pulling up the chart and going through other prominent astrological forces that we'll be receiving around the time of this new moon. And of course, I will be talking about some gemstones that resonate well with this sign of Leo, and overall just gemstones that can help support us through this lunar transit. Okay, so here we go. The sign of Leo. Leo is ruled by the sun. Okay, the sun is obviously the brightest light in the sky. The sign of Leo tends to be the brightest light wherever it goes. And no, that doesn't mean that every single person who has their sun in Leo is this super bright shining light. I've met some shy Leos before. It's rare, but there's so much more to the natal chart. However, this sign of Leo in and of itself, it's a sign of vitality being ruled by the sun. It's actually like the sign of royalty. When we picture the sun's rays coming off, that's like the crown for this sign of Leo. It's like the king or the queen of the zodiac, comes with excellent leadership skills. Okay, now also this sign of Leo, it's what we call the fixed fire sign. Now, when I'm saying fixed, what I mean is an ability to do things in a steadfast way. The fixed signs can also come with a little bit of stubbornness, but sometimes stubbornness can be good. Now, when we talk about that element of fire, we're talking about energy here, okay? The sign of Leo definitely can come with a lot of energy. And one of the grand things about this sign of Leo is that it's fixed fire. So it holds the energy in. The other two fire signs, Aries and Sagittarius, can have more of a tendency to overexert themselves, versus Leo energetically holds it in. Okay, now it's the hottest sign of the zodiac. Leo represents the middle of summer. Okay, a lot of people have their sun in Leo tend to run very hot. Now, also, the motto for the sign of Leo is I will. This is a sign that comes with willpower. You know, how many of us need to manifest more willpower into our life? Also, this sign of Leo is represented by the lion, okay? Like the lion who's the king of the jungle. The sign of Leo tends to be the king or the queen of the zodiac. And much like a lion, this sign comes with courage and bravery, again, willpower. This sign also can be very playful, just like a lion can be very playful. How many of us need to manifest more playfulness into our life? This is a perfect time to do that. Okay. Now, again, so this is a time to, what I always do, as some of you know by now, is I pull out my journal, preferably in the hours leading up to the new moon. Sometimes I'll do it a couple days before or whatever. And I write down what I want to manifest, the energy that I want to manifest into my life, the growth or the new beginning. So I'll be pulling out my journal and writing down, I am manifesting, just as an example here, I am manifesting, more willpower and more playfulness into this area of my life. When I'm talking about the area of my life, every single person, even if you have no planets in the sign of Leo, not even your midheaven or whatever, the sign of Leo is still somewhere in your natal chart. Okay. It occupies a house somewhere in your natal chart. And when I say houses, what I'm talking about is areas of your life. Like for an example here, the sign of Leo occupies my 9th house, the house of higher learning. Advanced knowledge has a lot to do with expanding the consciousness and metaphysics and philosophy and that sort of thing. So that's the area of my own life that I'll be applying these new moon manifestations to. For you, it could be coming through your house of self. If you're a Leo rising, could be coming through your house of money, house of relationships, house of communication, house of karma, house of physical health. There's all these different areas of your life that it could be coming through. And that's part of the reason why it's so good to get familiar with our natal chart, so that we know what we're doing here. We know how to work with this moon magic. Of course, if that's too much for you, that's perfectly okay. We learn astrology in baby steps, and it's still a good idea to pull out our journals and write, what we're trying to manifest related simply to the sign of Leo. But if you want to learn more, about your natal chart, when you get a reading with me, I always offer you a free video recording. You can always go back to that recording. And anytime we're having a new moon in whatever sign it is, or a full moon or eclipse or anything astrological, you can go back to that recording and see which area of your life is being activated by that transit. Okay, so there's that. Let me go ahead and pull up the chart here. There's a lot of aspects going on with this new moon. So just follow along as best as you can. So first of all, for those of you who are new to my recordings, I work with geocentric Western astrology. So with that said, what we're looking at here is basically a snapshot of the tropical zodiac. These guys right here on the outer part of the wheel, these are all the celestial bodies. Like here's Venus, here's the moon, here's the sun, here's Mercury. When we go in the wheel a little way, these are the symbols for the zodiac signs that all these things are going to be beaming through onto Earth. Working with geocentric, we put Earth right here in the middle. So this is, again, a snapshot of the tropical zodiac at the time of this new moon. Now, I must say this as well. This is based on my location, okay, in Santa Cruz, California. What I'm talking about here is, here's the moon and here's the sun. Here's the symbol for the sign of Leo. We can see that the sun and the moon are both at 23 degrees Leo. For everybody on Earth, the sun and the moon are going to be at 23 degrees Leo using the tropical zodiac. However, if you're over on the East Coast or something like that, the sun and the moon might be up here. Or if you're over in the UK, the sun and the moon might be over here, something like that. But they're still going to be in the sign of Leo. This is just based on my location. So there's that. Okay. Now, anytime we have a new moon, it means the sun, here's the sun, and the moon, here's the moon, are in the exact same spot. So again, they're both at 23 degrees, and to be specific here, in 17 minutes Leo. So let's talk about that. 23 degrees Leo. This is in the third decan of that Leo energy. So it's actually got a little twist of Aries energy as well. And I'm going to be talking a little bit about this sign of Aries. That's Leo's brother sign, okay? And there's some real harmonious connections going on between the sign of Leo and the sign of Aries during this new moon. So I definitely want to put some emphasis there. Aries is the cardinal fire sign. It's the warrior. So we're talking about the king or the queen and the warrior, like kind of getting along for this new moon. It's kind of exciting. So there's that. Now, and not only that, but you can also take in that consideration when you're writing out your manifestations, adding in that kind of more cardinal energy. Cardinal meaning comes with force. Okay, now the first aspect I'm going to mention about this new moon, as we can see right here, this is Venus, who's pretty darn close to the sun and the moon. Now, Venus, she is in retrograde. Personally, I don't put too much emphasis on that retrograde unless it's hitting something very specific in your chart. If you have anything near 18 degrees Leo in your natal chart, or maybe opposing that at 18 degrees Aquarius, or trining that at 18 degrees Aries or Sagittarius, whatever, unless it's hitting something real major in your chart, I don't worry too much about that retrograde. If you really want to look into, retrograde, how to manifest or how to work with that retrograde energy, specifically Venus retrograde, think about it this way. Venus influences things like love, beauty, romance, harmony, everybody getting along, everybody just kind of relaxing and have a good time. Okay. Also can represent any female in our life except for mother. Mother is more when we're talking about the moon. Okay. Could be a sister, could be your little neighbor friend that comes over, young girl. Usually Venus is more associated with a younger girl, but not always. It could definitely be, if you got a friend who's a little older than you that's a female, can also be Venus's energy. And so all those things that are Venetian, that Venus represents, if this is hitting something hard in your chart, again, if you got something near 18 degrees Leo, it might be time to kind of reevaluate a situation regarding those things. Okay. It might be time to reevaluate how you're making yourself look beautiful, or reevaluate your relationship with your sister, or, any of those things that have to do with beauty, anything aesthetically pleasing, even relationships. Venus is very romantic. Okay. Now we went into that retrograde. I'm going to just put a little bit of focus on this because they're pretty darn close. 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23. They're about 5 degrees away from each other. So with that said, it's like they're blending together. This new moon, this new energy, new beginnings. That's basically every time we have a new moon, when the sun and the moon come together, the sun's the father, the moon's the mother, they're coming together, they're making a baby. They're making an energetic baby. And that baby's going to grow over these next 6 months. And that's our opportunity to experience this growth. Well, when we have Venus so close, this could also, you can include that into your manifestations. How do I want to grow in these Venetian ways? Maybe I want to, find more beauty within myself. And I'm not talking about beauty, on the cover of Vogue magazine with ladies with makeup all over their face. I mean, sure, I guess that could be kind of Venetian energy. But when I think of Venus's relation to beauty, it's like real, raw, authentic, true beauty from the inside. Okay. So you can add that into your manifestations. Okay. So there's that. Or maybe if you're trying to manifest a new relationship, this could potentially be a good time to do that. It kind of depends on how it's hitting your chart. It's another thing too. Anything that I say in any of these videos, it's kind of difficult to interpret a chart that's for the entire collective, because it's so important to realize that we all experience this incredibly uniquely, and so much of this, again, as I mentioned, like for myself, this takes place in my 9th house, my house of higher learning. For you, whatever that sign of Leo comes through your natal chart, here's the symbol for Leo. If you pull up your natal chart, you can see which little slice of pie that sign of Leo comes through. And then you can see what that house, these little slices of pie, you can see what the energy is of that house. That way, which area of your life this is going to be manifesting through. And by the way, I will be teaching a 6-part series courses for the Academy for Astrological Medicine coming up here in September. Be looking for advertisements for that. It'll be a great way for you beginners, or even, if you're a little more advanced, but you just want to really understand the technicalities, that's going to be a great set of classes for those of you who, are interested in learning how to apply this stuff into your own natal chart. Okay, so there's that. Now, the next aspect I'm going to mention here is this right here is Chiron. All right. Chiron is described as the wounded healer. Okay. Now, oh boy, I don't know how deep I want to go here. Chiron has so much to do with our deep buried wounds that usually manifest from like early childhood development. And as we go through our life, we're offered opportunities to heal those wounds. And when we do, we tend to become healers ourselves. For some people, their Chiron's really strong in their chart, and you can see it clearly. For some people, Chiron's not that big of a deal in their chart, but we're all experiencing Chiron all the time. And it's not like he goes away. Chiron's always going to be up in the sky. And he's going through the sign of Aries. As I mentioned, Aries is Leo's brother sign, really Sagittarius and Leo. They're Sagittarius and Aries are both Leo's brother signs. But Aries, the warrior, it's the sign of self. It's the sign that comes with energy and aggression, and it's the warrior, And so, and again, it's the sign of self. As I mentioned, the motto for the sign of Leo is I will. Well, the motto for the sign of Aries is I am. These two signs are incredibly strong and powerful. So we've got the wounded healer who going through the sign of self. This is like, Chiron's going to be going through Aries, all the way till 2026, I believe. So this is a really good time for all of us to be working on healing ourselves. I'm not trying to suggest at all that you shouldn't be asking for guidance in your healing journey, but this is a really good time for us to be taking action. In fact, Chiron was discovered in 1977, and that's like exactly when the whole holistic healing stuff started coming into fruition, and people wanted to start healing themselves. So think about Chiron that way. Now, why am I putting so much emphasis on this? Because Chiron is harmonizing these blue lines, these trines, these 120-degree angles. Chiron is harmonizing. They're getting along. They're having a great conversation, like the new moon saying, hey, let's have new beginnings with willpower. And let's make it beautiful because Venus is right there. And let's harmonize with healing ourselves. Okay, so there's that. Now also, there's right here is the North Node, who's also harmonizing with these guys. You know what the North Node is. Hopefully, if you guys have been listening to me for a while, I talk about the North Node all the time. That is where celestial energy comes in. Okay, it just entered into the sign of Aries in July 17th. It's going to be there all the way until January of 2025. Okay, now again, Aries is the sign of self. It's the warrior. And isn't it interesting, these fires that are going on in Maui? I mean, I know it's absolutely tragic, extremely tragic. I have some friends who very well may have lost their house. They don't know yet. But that Aries is the fire. Aries, I mean, these are all, Leo's fire, Sagittarius is fire, Aries is fire, but Aries is the one that ignites the fire. That's the cardinal fire sign, okay? And the North Node that brings celestial energy in, again, just entered into that sign of Aries. It's bringing in the heat, okay? But it's also bringing in the action, and it's harmonizing with this new moon. I love it. I love it, especially since Venus is right there too, because this might be almost like too much heat. In some cases, I guess it is too much heat, but I like that Venus is there. Venus almost could be considered as like a remedy for anything. That's a little bit of an exaggeration, but Venus can cool things when they're too hot. So there's that. Okay, now the next aspect I'm going to mention here is, all right, where is it? There it is. Okay, so here is the sun and the moon at 23 degrees Leo. And these red lines that go up to Uranus is at 23 degrees Taurus. That's an exact square. Okay, so when I'm talking about square, I'm talking about these red lines here. It's approximately a 90-degree angle. So Uranus brings abrupt, revolutionary, spasmodic, technological changes. Okay, not only that, but Uranus wants freedom. Uranus is a freedom fighter. He wants everybody to be their own unique self, authentic self. Even though we can all still work together as a team, we can all work together as a tribe, but everybody gets to be their own little weird self. Okay, that's very Uranus energy, although Uranus does definitely throw surprises at us. But this square here, definitely, again, so much of this depends on your own natal chart, but there could definitely be some internal tensions going on due to this square. If you've got anything in your chart near 23 degrees Leo, 23 degrees Taurus, even 23 degrees Aquarius, or 23 degrees Scorpio, this might definitely bring some internal tension. I'm sorry, I don't mean to be giggling, but it's, again, just so much depends on your own natal chart. Just be mindful within yourself and focus on the new beginnings. Okay. Now this Uranus energy, it's like literally the Uranus and the sun and the moon are having this conversation. It's kind of an intense conversation. It's actually a little bit of an aggressive conversation, but Uranus wants out with the old, in with the new. Uranus is like, that old way of doing things is not working anymore. Step into your real authentic self. And I see this time and time again, many, many years ago. I'm guilty of this myself. Seeing what other people are doing, people who are getting, wealth or success, or they're gaining status, like of course we look up to these people, like, hey, what are they doing? I want to do what they're doing, that sort of thing. But we don't want to lose track of who we are within ourself. It's so important that we own who we are. We are ourself. And this is a perfect lineup for people to, I'm talking about this new moon, all these things that are going on. It's such a perfect setup for people to step into their own authority and have their willpower and realize, I am that Aries energy. I am this with willpower. Okay, so there's that. I'm getting a little excited here. Okay, so then let's see here. I think the next thing I'll talk about is Pluto over here, just briefly, because we've talked about Pluto going through Capricorn for a while, but I'm mostly focused on this T-square that's going on between the nodes. So Pluto, I'm not going to talk too much about this because I've already talked a lot about it in previous videos, but Pluto influences a very, very powerful transformational process. Whatever he's going through, Pluto influences a death and rebirth process, degeneration, and then a more powerful regeneration. Pluto is sometimes called the planet of power because he can bring power for sure. If somebody's got a strong Pluto in their natal chart, they can be very, very powerful. Okay. But they usually have to go through some kind of powerful transformational process in order to gain that power. Well, going through the sign of Capricorn, Capricorn rules authoritarian establishments, the structure of our civilization. Capricorn rules the knees. By the way, I'm having a lot of people turn up with knee problems lately. And I think part of that is because Pluto's in retrograde and just got out of that 29th degree, but regardless, he's going to have to go back into that. Pluto going through the last degrees of Capricorn all the way until 2024. Like right now he's in retrograde. He's going to move forward later on in the year, and he's going to then peek into the sign of Aquarius for the second time. Then he's going to retrograde back into Capricorn. And then eventually in 2024, he'll be out of that sign of Capricorn. But this is kind of a gnarly transit, Pluto at those late degrees of Capricorn. But even more so, these red lines, these squares. So we already talked about the north node. That's where celestial energy comes in. Well, the south node is where celestial energy goes out. Okay. And these squares, I mean, honestly, the way that I do look at things very optimistically. It's my Sagittarius rising. Don't mind that. This transformational process, even though it's kind of brutal for a lot of people, sheesh, for those of you who've got a sun or something prominent near 28 degrees Capricorn, I'm sending you tons of love because you're probably going through something pretty heavy right now. You're going through a death and rebirth process, okay? But these nodes, again, the north node, that's what brings energy in. The south node's where it goes out. So they're there to help with this transformational process. Those nodes are like, okay, bring in the new powerful energy, flush out this stuff that's not serving us. Okay, so there's that. The next thing we'll talk about right here, let's talk about Mercury and Venus for Mercury, Mars for a minute. So let's start with Mercury. Here's Mercury in the sign of Virgo, which Mercury's great in Virgo. My goodness, in Vedic astrology is considered exalted in Virgo and in his own home. In Western astrology, he's in his own home. Okay, it works so well here because Mercury rules the sign of Virgo. He's in his own home there. I shouldn't say he. Mercury is technically a hermaphrodite, but regardless, his archetype is generally shown as a male figure. So that's why I just have this tendency to call Mercury a he. But this Mercurial Virgoan blend, okay, Virgo is the sign of analyzing things, perfectionism, purity, wanting things to be pure and clean, organization skills, keeping everything all organized. Okay. And Mercury excels here. If you've got Mercury in Virgo in your natal chart, in most cases, you're stoked because that's your Mercury. Okay. Mercury is basically the ruler of what's happening in our mental function. Okay. Basically, we receive information constantly, nonstop. And Mercury is the one receiving that information. And Mercury files it away somewhere into our mind. And then when we want to communicate that information, bring it back out to tell somebody else about it, Mercury goes in and finds that file and brings it back out for us to, communicate that information. Mercury is the messenger of the gods. And in Virgo, we can stay very organized. Okay. I love that placement. However, so basically what I'm getting at here is this could be great for our mental function. However, here's Mars. Mercury and Mars don't get along. Mars is like burning Mercury up. Mars is hot, aggressive, rules our adrenaline, our muscles. I talked about how Aries is the warrior and is aggressive. Well, that's because it's ruled by Mars, okay? Even just the little symbol there for Mars is meant to look like he's trying to penetrate because that's Mars is masculine and dominant and red hot, okay? And poor Mercury over here is burning up next to Mars in Virgo. Now, another thing to mention about this transit, let's see, how is this going to go on? Oh, okay. Mars is going to move forward. I can't remember exactly when Mars moves into Libra, but I think it's in just like a couple of weeks. Mercury is actually going to stay in Virgo for a little while because Mercury is going to go forward and then go retrograde on August 26th, move back. So Mercury's in Virgo all the way till October. So these guys aren't going to be too close for so long, but at the time of this new moon, Virgo rules the intestines. Okay. With Mars alone in Virgo, people could be dealing with intestinal issues, frustrated intestines. What's the word I'm looking for? Like, oh boy, I can't think of the word of it right for it now, but hopefully it'll come to me. Like just inflamed and irritated, intestinal issues. And then it's like going up into their mind and it's bugging the heck out of them with this transit. Again, so much of this depends on your own natal chart, but some people's like neurons or even just their nervous system overall. Mercury is a huge influence on our nervous system. So does the sign of Virgo. Could be kind of like, overstimulated and a little irritated right now. So keep that in mind. It's not a bad thing. It's not. It's a transit that we all experience, and not only that, but use it for processing the information while Mercury's in Virgo. Okay, now, especially up until the 26th when he goes retrograde. Okay, now let's move on to, well, we kind of already talked about Uranus. Uranus, again, spasmodic, zappy, electrical energy going through the sign of Taurus, and Taurus rules our agricultural systems and our financial systems. And there is a lot of abrupt changes going on because Uranus is going through Taurus, and Uranus is in Taurus all the way until 2026. Okay, Jupiter in Taurus. We've talked about this. Now, Jupiter's wonderful. Jupiter is considered the great benefic. Okay. Jupiter brings abundance and luck and wisdom and long distance travel for the purpose of, bringing in more wisdom and expanding the consciousness. And it's, for some people, this is a really, really wonderful transit. That sign of Taurus can also have a lot to do with consuming. This could be, some people are over consuming in either way, in the process of like buying things, over purchasing, or that sign of Taurus also rules the mouth and has a lot to do with consuming food. It might want to be a little bit mindful of that. Jupiter is going through the sign of Taurus all the way until May of 2024. So just be a little bit mindful of that. And in fact, next year, it's next year. I think it's early next year. Jupiter and Uranus are going to be exactly conjunct. I'll talk about that when we get there, but that's going to be, it's like picture, okay, Uranus is kind of like sticking your finger in an electrical socket, and then Jupiter comes along and makes it a bigger deal. So that in the sign of Taurus, which again, agricultural systems, financial systems, wild stuff going on there. All right, let's leave that there. Okay, let's move on to Saturn retrograding through Pisces. There's a lot of retrogrades going on right now. Saturn's in retrograde, Pluto's in retrograde, Neptune's in retrograde, Chiron's in retrograde, Venus is in retrograde, and again, Mercury is going to go retrograde on the 26th. So that retrograde energy overall, just like as a super good general rule of thumb, it really gives us a good opportunity to reevaluate situations that are going on in our life. Okay, so Saturn going through Pisces. Saturn is the one that brings the discipline in, the structure. Saturn is Kronos in Greek mythology, the one that looks like the Grim Reaper and wears the black cloak and carries the scythe. Saturn is the one who restricts, okay? Saturn is definitely not a fun character, but he also can be the bringer of wisdom. Saturn can teach us some very, very hard lessons. My goodness, I gave a reading to a lady yesterday who had a ton of Pisces energy, and she's had a lot of really, really like restrictive things going on in her life because Saturn's very close to these things in her natal chart, and things are being like, there's a lot of limitations being placed on her life, that sort of thing. So that's Saturn's job though. And what I was trying to get the message across to her, of course, with a lot more detail, but the gist of it all was that, that if you follow Saturn's rules, if you stay disciplined, you will feel a lot more wisdom when this transit is done. Saturn will definitely reward us with wisdom if we are being disciplined. Okay. So if you got anything in your chart near 4 degrees Pisces, some of that might be going on for you right now as a collective. So Pisces rules our psychic capabilities. Pisces rules mysticism and spirituality. And part of the reason I love Saturn I'm a Pisces, and I am so, people would be like, why would you want Saturn to be in Pisces? I didn't want Saturn to enter Pisces, but now he's there. And I've been thinking to myself, I kind of like a lot of people, again, I'm a Pisces. I'm not saying anything bad about Pisces. I like being a Pisces. There's pros and cons to everything in astrology, but Pisces can have this very strong tendency to be kind of go off into daydream land. Like I just, speaking from a Piscean perspective, like what am I doing here in this weird physical realm? Like there's too many chores, too many responsibilities. What's this thing called taxes? Like just weird stuff like that for Pisces. They don't fit. And here's Saturn who's like, well, guess what? This is the time where I'm cracking the whip on you, Pisces. You're here. You're having this very physical experience, and it might feel very restrictive for some Pisces out there, but on the same token, in some ways, I think this is good. Another thing too, Saturn actually rules the structure of crystals. Okay. Like when a crystal is being formed, that is Saturn's job. And Pisces is very connected to the mystical side of crystals. Okay. A lot of crystals can really enhance psychic capabilities and intuition, amongst many, many other things. That's very Piscean energy. And so Saturn going through Pisces is like bringing those two things together, bringing the mystical with like the science or the structure of things. That's what I like about it. Okay. And especially I like Saturn going through Pisces because Again, I do have a tendency to just focus on the optimistic things, and that's not necessarily the case 100% of the time, but I always try to find the good things about all the transits. There is literally pros and cons to everything in astrology, every planet, every house, every aspect, every zodiac sign. There's always going to be pros and cons too. And where focus goes, energy flows. So I do try to focus on the positive. Okay, so Neptune going through Pisces all the way till 2025, late 2025, Neptune is going through Pisces. And Neptune is Pisces ruler. Neptune is what makes Pisces what it is. Neptune rules psychic capabilities. When people, they don't have to have any Pisces energy in their natal chart. They got a strong Neptune in the chart, they got strong psychic capabilities. But it's also, Neptune can be a little dreamy, a little it's what it is it's so detached from the physical realm. This Neptune going through Pisces is so dreamy. So many people are having incredibly powerful, spiritual awakenings and incredibly intense, like meditation practices, like really tapping in, that sort of thing. But on the other hand, it's also a lot of people are, it's charlatan energy. And I've mentioned that several times in videos before, so I don't want to go too deep into this, but people can definitely become kind of easily manipulated with too much Pisces energy in their natal chart. So again, while it's beautiful, Neptune going through Pisces, I'm happy to be alive while Neptune's going through Pisces, because Neptune takes, I think it's about 150 years to go around this whole zodiac. But that's another reason why I'm kind of glad Saturn's there, like, crack the whip here, guys. All right, so did I get through everybody here? I think I did. I think I covered everything. Okay, I'm going to leave that there. Let's talk about body parts. So first of all, the sign of Leo and the sun, both, okay? So the sun rules the sign of Leo, and the sign of Leo, they both together rule our heart. Like, how important is our heart? So this is a really good time to be doing heart chakra work. If you have heart problems, and I'm not a doctor, I'm not trying to offer any kind of medical advice. Anything I say is just stuff that I've learned from my teachers over the years, and stuff that I've kind of, indulged in myself and just learned about for myself. But again, I'm not trying to offer you any kind of medical advice. But if you already are having heart problems, you might want to be a little bit extra careful with your heart around this lunar transit. I mean, really the whole time the sun's going through Leo, really all the way kind of until, honestly, even kind of until October, because Venus is going through Leo till October. I can't remember what day in October, but regardless, when something transits through the sign of Leo and you're having heart problems, that could activate it. It could, it could also bring wonderful things. It could, especially Venus, right? Even heal your heart problems. But anyway, we might just want to be a little bit careful with our heart. So some things to talk about the heart here. How do we support our heart? First of all, let's talk about hawthorn. Hawthorn can actually relax the arteries in the heart. And then also, what's another one? Motherwort can actually relax the cardiac system. Okay. Let's see what else. Holy basil can be really good for the heart. But it's a couple other things. Not iodine, nascent iodine. In my opinion, I feel like everybody should be on nascent iodine. This right here is from a company called Global Healing. They have really good products. If you want quality, Global Healing, I think Dr. Group is oh gosh, I hope I got that right. But regardless, it's Global Healing. And I wish the camera would pick that up a little better, but it's called Detoxidine, which the sun rules iodine. And, honestly, because all of us are working indoors and we're just not outdoors as much as we should be, in my very strong opinion. And so a lot of us can be very low on iodine. There's a thing that's happened with salt over the years, and a lot of us can be very, very low on iodine. This iodine is excellent. Not only is this like very much associated with the heart and the sign of Leo, but it's also really good for like kind of protecting our bodies from all this weird stuff that we're exposed to being in front of our devices all the time. Okay, what else did I want to mention? Vitamin A and D are ruled by the sun and very strongly associated with the sign of Leo. And again, a lot of us are lacking in vitamin D. And this is something that I just recently learned. So a lot of you know that I love to harvest my own medicinal mushrooms. I'm a total forest lady who likes to go out and pick things. Of course, I'm not saying you should do that, because you have to know what you're doing. Mushrooms can be very dangerous if you don't know what you're doing. but I've been doing it for a while. So I know which, for the most part, I'm pretty good at figuring out what mushrooms are medicinal. There's a lot of extremely powerful and wonderful medicinal mushrooms out there. Of course, you can purchase them. Paul Stamets has good stuff out there. Oh gosh, oh boy, Ron Teagarden has a really good medicinal mushroom tincture. There's so many good medicinal mushrooms out there. Just overall, so good for the immune system. But this stuff that grows, this right here is called a red-belted polypore or red-belted conch. Okay, now this white stuff that grows on the bottom of turkey tails, goes on a lot of, like, when I say polypore or conch, what I'm talking about are mushrooms that grow out of a tree. Okay, like this did not grow out of the ground. This was growing out of a tree. I've got 3 shelves filled with medicinal mushrooms, but I live in a good area for it. But this white stuff, we can get really good vitamin D from that. That, like, if you're not getting enough sun, especially if you live in a place where, you know, it's always cold and that sort of thing, that is excellent to help support the heart and get the vitamin D. Okay, now another thing, I'm going to go into gemstones now. So the dedicated zodiacal birthstone for the sign of Leo is ruby. Some of you know I wear a ruby almost all the time because, well, I've got certain placements in my natal chart that say I really need to support my heart. Okay. And this ruby it's, again, Leo rules the heart, and a ruby is Leo's gemstone. And not only that, but a ruby is the sun's gemstone as well. And gold, and this was from my grandmother. So I just miss her so much. And I'm so grateful that I was able to inherit this because it's healing for me. Gold is the sun's metal. Okay. Now, here's another different kind of ruby. That's, what do you call it? Opaque, I think. You can buy very affordable ruby. Okay. Especially like raw ruby. But I will say this, if you are already super Leo dominant, let's say you've got your sun and Leo conjunct Mars, or something that you're like a Leo rising, you might not want to wear a ruby, especially set in gold, because you're already at that, you're vibrating at that level, and you can kind of like overdo it, like overstimulate your heart. Again, I'm not a doctor and I'm trying to offer medical advice, but again, this is stuff that I've learned over the years and experienced for myself. Like I said, I really do feel what happens. Oops, that's the wrong ring. I really do feel what happens when I wear my ruby set in gold. Okay, so some other gemstones. I thought, this is wild. I don't have any moldavite. I didn't even realize I didn't have any moldavite until this morning. I'm going through my Leo gemstones in my books, and I'm like, I don't have any freaking moldavite. I need to get some moldavite. Moldavite is really good for heart injuries. Again, I'm not offering medical advice. I have to be so stern about that. But out of one of my favorite medical astrology books, oh boy, who's the author? It is Eileen Nauman, I think it is. Anyway, she's got a really good book that I think it's just called Medical Astrology. And in the back, or towards the end of the book, is a whole list of gemstones. Usually I get most of my gemstone and, you know, astrology connection from the Academy for Astrological Medicine and the occupies system that I've learned from Judith Hill. But I also have a encyclopedia on crystals, but I also have some other random books laying around that, you know, I like to learn this stuff from. And from what I was reading is that the moldavite can be really good for heart injury. Oh, and back on the ruby, this is something else I just read this morning. Ruby might not be good for cancer patients. I'm glad I remembered to say that. I didn't know that until I was reading that of this book this morning. So just be mindful of that as well. That's ruby. You might want to be careful with, you know, even this kind of ruby if you're dealing with cancer issues. Okay, so there's that. Now we're going to move on to tiger's eye and tiger's iron. It's kind of hard to tell the difference. This one's tiger's iron. This one's tiger's eye. These are both very Leo stones, and they will enhance willpower. Okay. These are really good minerals to have around, especially, I mean, honestly, I just feel like so many people in the world are just, it's hard to, you know, going back to the sign of Leo and it being the sign that wants to enjoy life with willpower. I feel like there's so many people who are just kind of like drowning right now. It's hard to be alive these days. It's hard to just have like a happy, normal life with the day and age we're living in. But we can do it, especially, you know, if we work at it and we work hard for it. And personally, I'm one of those, hippies that say gemstones can help with that. Okay, so I'm going to leave that there. If you would like to schedule an astrology reading, you can schedule straight through my website, erinwageastrology.com. And one more thing I was going to mention about that. If you are in a totally different time zone than me, my website is set for Pacific time. Okay, I'm in California. If you're in a totally different time zone than me, if you're like 8 hours ahead of me or something, you can send me an email. Just put in the subject, but in all capitals, like time zone different, astrology reading, something like that. So I see that it's you, because I have had a couple messages come through lately that people are saying, I'd love to get a reading with you, but it doesn't fit into my schedule. I don't want to get a reading at 3 o'clock in the morning. So there's that. My email is erinwageastrology.com, but generally speaking, it's way easier if you just schedule straight through my website. Sometimes I have a tendency to miss emails every once in a while. So if you schedule a reading straight through my website, then it's every single device I own, it pings it, and I'll never miss a reading. Okay, you guys, I do hope to hear from some of you. And until next time, namaste. Too. I love you.